Hi there, podcast and public radio fans. Heath Drusen here, host and creator of the Extremely American podcast. I'm working on season 3, which is an urgent story about neo-Nazi terrorists and how they helped build a modern white supremacist movement, even from prison. Some of their ideas have even made it to today's White House. It's both a gripping true crime story and a timely warning about threats to our democracy. And this time, my investigative reporting is funded by you. To support the project, please make a tax-deductible contribution at extremelyamerican.org. That's extremelyamerican.org. And thanks.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, you're listening to Idaho Matters. I'm Gemma Gaudette. This month, the Wassmuth Center for Human Rights is marking a major milestone. For 30 years, the organization has championed the dignity of all people using education and public outreach. And since opening, the memorial has become widely popular, attracting more than 100,000 visitors every year. And now, as they celebrate this special anniversary, we're taking a look back at their impact and what's to come. So joining us now to talk more is Christina Bruce-Binion, the Executive Director of the Wassmuth Center for Human Rights. Christina, it's nice to have you back on the program.
Hi, Gemma. Thanks for having me.
So before we get into talking about the celebration itself, can you take us back to the beginning? What was happening here in Idaho at the time the Wassmuth Center was founded? And what need was the center hoping to address at the time?
Yeah, well, back in the late 1980s and early 1990s, there were a variety of things happening both politically and socially in Idaho and around the country. And in Idaho specifically, there were things like what at the time back then was called Proposition 1, or the anti-gay bill. That was an effort to minimize legal protections for folks who are LGBTQIA plus around the state. That fortunately did not pass at the time, but there were things like the head of the local NAACP had a rock thrown through their front window. And of course, in the northern part of Idaho, there were all the Aryan nations and that compound and sort of the harassment and the violence that group was perpetrating, not just in northern Idaho, but across the region. And so there was a confluence of things happening, really. And then in 1995, just sort of not connected to those originally, but there was a traveling exhibit that was touring around the country called Anne Frank in the World. And Boise was on the list of cities that hosted this exhibit. And when the exhibit was here, and it was at the time hosted at the State Museum, over 40,000 people visited. So this is back in 1995. Boise was much smaller. The Treasure Valley was much smaller in terms of population. And yet we had one of the highest rates of visitation for that exhibit of any of the cities where it stopped in the country. And there was a group of women who are here from Boise who sort of took a look around. They had been involved in a lot of the issues, and then they saw the impact that this traveling exhibit had and sort of how the story of Anne Frank, both her own story that despite being in horrific circumstances during the Holocaust and World War II, that she was able to keep sort of a basic foundational faith in the dignity and the good of humanity. And that her story also reminded people that when one group is targeted for discrimination, it never just stays with that one group. It always widens to start, broader efforts at discrimination. And so these women came up with an idea. Originally was just going to be some kind of maybe a stone with a plaque along the Greenbelt. And once they started talking about it with other people and fundraising, the momentum just really took off. So the center was founded in 1996 to really build the memorial, which didn't actually open to the public until 2002, but has been in the heart of our community ever since.
You know, when you think about those early years and you compare them to where the organization is today, what stands out the most to you?
I think a few things. One is that from the very beginning, it has been a community-supported effort. So, school children around the state of Idaho save their pennies and nickels to pay for the Anne Frank statue. When you visit the memorial, you can see all the names of families and individuals and companies that have, purchased a brick or a bench or a paver somewhere in the memorial. And then we call it our campus now because, of course, there's the memorial, but now the education building that opened in 2024. Really, from the beginning, it has been community supported, community visited. And so to me, I think that's one of the biggest things and has been able to grow and expand a little bit.
So for someone who has never visited the Idaho Anne Frank Human Rights Memorial, can you kind of paint us a picture? I mean, what do people see when they arrive? What do you hope they take away from that experience?
Yeah, so the memorial sits right along at the end of 8th Street, kind of between the end of 8th Street, the public library, the cabin, and the greenbelt along the river. So it's in a really beautiful central location in Boise. And it's an open air memorial. So anyone is free to visit 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And in the memorial, you will find a variety of areas for both learning and reflecting. There are quotes about sort of human rights related ideas from throughout history and different people groups, but also an invitation to reflect on what kind of world we want to build together so that we really finally can start to live into the idea of never again. And how do we, what does it look like to build communities that center dignity and belonging? There's, of course, the iconic statue of Anne Frank. There are images of Idahoans who maybe were not the most famous people, but stood up in their own way to make a better community. So it's a real variety of spaces and opportunities to sort of think and reflect and be inspired. And that's what we ultimately hope people will take away from a visit to the memorial, the center, the building, is what is something I can do to make my community a better place. And each one of us can show up in different ways to do that.
So I have just under 2 minutes left with you, Christina. Can you tell us a bit
Sure.
more about what people can expect from the anniversary celebration and remind us when and where it will take place?
Yeah, so it's coming up this Saturday, June 20th. It will take place on our campus, so both in the memorial and the building, from 1 to 3. It's free and open to the public, and there will be a variety of ways to engage with the space and to just see it and to learn from it and about it, and just also to celebrate that we have this wonderful place that I think for 30 years has been rooted in Idaho, and yet the work is relevant everywhere. And so we invite folks to join us and look forward to celebrating the past, the present, and what comes next together.
Well, I want to thank you so very much for taking time to talk with us today. We've been speaking with Christina Bruce Binion. She is the executive director of the Wassmuth Center for Human Rights. We've been discussing the center's 30th anniversary, and as Christina said, the celebration will be held this Saturday. It is open to the public. You've been listening to the Idaho Matters podcast from Boise State Public Radio. To stay in touch, you can find quick Idaho daily news every morning when you subscribe to the Connector podcast. Just by listening, you're helping to support public radio right here in Idaho. And I want to say a big thank you for that.
Each story you hear on Planet Money starts with a question. What happens if we refund tariffs? Why are groceries so expensive? At NPR, we stand for your right to be curious because the forces shaping our world can be hard to see. Follow NPR's Planet Money wherever you get your podcasts and start seeing how the economy really works.